There is a screen. It is black and gray and grainy, and on it, 11 shapes glow white with their own body heat. They move the way hogs move, low and busy, noses down in a field somewhere in central Louisiana, rooting the dark. The drone hangs above them, silent, 100 feet up, and the man holding the controller counts them off the way you'd count anything you were about to remove from the world. 11. He has flown this ground for 2 seasons. 2 seasons ago, there were 40 animals working this field on a warm night. Now there are 11, and next month there may be 6, and he does not fully understand why. That is the thing nobody tells you about feral hogs in Louisiana. They are the animal that cannot be beaten. They are the flood that keeps rising. And yet on a thermal screen at 3 in the morning, in more and more places, the flood is quietly going out, and something is pulling it out. One white shape at a time in the black water where no one is watching. This is a story about the most destructive animal in the state, and the one question the drone footage keeps raising and never quite answers. In a place that has declared total war on these pigs and is still losing that war, what is actually killing them in the dark? And why can nothing, not the hunters, not the traps, not whatever is moving through the cypress at night, turn the tide? Before we get to what the drone caught, you have to understand what it is up against, because the scale of this is almost hard to hold in your head. The Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries estimates the state's feral hog population at around 700,000 animals. In November of 2024, a veterinarian told the state's Wildlife and Fisheries Commission that number was probably low, that the real figure might be more than 900,000. Either way, it is a population larger than the cities of New Orleans and Baton Rouge combined, made entirely of a wild, intelligent 4-legged animal that most people will never see in daylight. They are in all 64 parishes, every single one. The pine flats in the north, the rice country in the southwest, the cane fields, the bitur along the river, the marsh at the very edge of the Gulf. There is no corner of this state without them. They were not born wild. That is the strange part. Every feral hog in Louisiana is descended from a domestic pig, some brought by the Spanish centuries ago, some escaped from farms, some released on purpose by people who wanted something to hunt. And in a handful of generations, that soft farm animal turns back into something older. The bristles come in, the tusks come in, the body goes lean and armored across the shoulders. What was livestock becomes one of the most reproductively efficient large mammals on Earth. A sow can breed year-round. She can throw 2 litters a year, sometimes 3, 6 to a dozen piglets at a time, and those piglets can breed before they are a year old. You do not fight a population like that. You try to hold it back, and mostly you fail. The math is brutal, and it is public. Wildlife biologists have run it more than once, and the answer never changes. To simply keep the hog population from growing, you would have to kill 70 to 75% of every hog in the state, every year, forever. Louisiana hunters and trappers, working hard, take about a third. So the line on the graph keeps climbing. In a federal survey, roughly 87% of Louisiana farmers said hog activity and damage on their land had increased since 2020, the highest of any southern state in the study. The LSU Ag Center put the damage in a single year at around $91 million. Rooted up fields, punctured irrigation pipe, broken equipment, contaminated streams. $91 million from an animal nobody wanted. And that is only the money. The hogs do something quieter, and if you love this landscape, worse. They eat it. They are not gentle omnivores turning over acorns. Biologists who cut open feral hogs in Louisiana have pulled out the remains of snakes, turtles, rabbits, ground-nesting birds, salamanders, deer fawns. They raid the nests of wild turkey. They strip the acorns that deer and ducks need to get through a hard winter. And in the marsh, they do something that should stop you cold because it foreshadows everything this story is about. They eat alligators, not the adults, the eggs. In a survey of licensed Louisiana alligator farmers, about half reported that feral hogs had raided their gator nests. Roughly 590 nests damaged or destroyed across 36 separate properties in a single year. A hog finds a nest mound at the water's edge, and it eats the whole thing, 25 to 50 eggs, gone in one sitting. In one Texas study where researchers put cameras on 28 alligator nests, about half of them were hit by hogs. Sit with that for a second. In the swamps of the Deep South, the animal raiding the alligator's nursery is a runaway farm pig. That is how far the balance has tipped. The invader is on top. The oldest predator in the water is losing its young to a creature that did not exist here a few hundred years ago. And it does not stop at the nests. It gets into the water itself. Researchers working watersheds in western and central Louisiana have found that where hogs are active, the bacteria in the streams climbs, often past state and federal safety limits, from nothing more exotic than the waste of thousands of pigs churning through the mud. In those same fouled stream reaches, the quiet native life thins out. Freshwater mussels decline. The small aquatic insects that hold the bottom of the whole system together decline with them. The hog does not just tear up a field you can replant. It changes the chemistry of the water that everything downstream has to drink. It reaches into parts of the ecosystem you would never think to connect to a pig, and it degrades them, one wallow at a time, in every one of those 64 parishes. So this is the world the drone flies over. An animal that breeds faster than we can kill it. An animal that eats the eggs of the apex predator that has ruled these wetlands since before there were roads to name. If you were going to bet on anything to run the table in Louisiana, unopposed, forever, you would bet on the hog, which is exactly why the quiet fields are so strange. For a long time, there was a clean answer to why nothing pushed back. It was simple, it fit the evidence, and it held for more than a decade. The answer was that Louisiana had nothing left to do the pushing. The big predators, the ones large enough to bring down a 200-pound boar, were gone. The red wolf was hunted and trapped out of the Deep South landscape generations ago. The eastern cougar, the panther that once moved through every one of these river bottoms, was declared gone from the region so long ago that grandfathers spoke of it as a story. Black bears remained in pockets, but a black bear is a shy forager, not a hunter of armored adult hogs. The swamp, the story went, had been emptied of anything that could eat a grown pig, and into that emptied swamp walked the most fertile large mammal alive, and it simply took over, because the seat at the top of the food chain was vacant and nobody was left to argue. And it was a comfortable explanation in its way, because it let two things be true at once. It let people mourn the lost panther as a closed chapter, a sad and finished thing, safely in the past. And it let them treat the hog as a purely human problem with a purely human solution, a pest to be trapped and shot and poisoned, an engineering job, nothing more. If there were no wild predators left, then the whole drama took place between us and the pigs, on our terms, with our tools. The wild had no part left to play. It had been written out of the script. That was the explanation. Nothing eats an adult hog here because nothing that could is still alive here. And for years standing in a rooted-up field at dawn, it was impossible to prove otherwise. Whatever happened in the dark, happened in the dark. Nobody could see it. So the clean story stayed clean. Then the night got a camera. If you are the kind of person who finds this stuff impossible to stop watching, the wild that hides right under the surface of the places we think we've tamed, and consider following along, because the next part is where the tidy explanation starts to come apart and it doesn't put itself back together. Thermal imaging changed what the swamp could keep secret. Not the grainy trail cameras strapped to a tree, waiting for one animal to walk past one spot. Drones. A camera in the sky that reads heat instead of light, that turns a pitch-black cane field into a map of every living thing warmer than the ground. Louisiana was, fittingly, one of the places this started. More than a decade ago, a pair of men founded an operation called Louisiana Hog Control and built a thermal camera aircraft they nicknamed the Dahoga Flyer. Flying it over fields at night to find sounders no ground hunter could ever locate in the dark. Today, whole crews do it. An outfit called Rougarou Hog Control runs thermal patrols across something like 100,000 acres spread over 8 parishes. The drone became the most effective anti-hog weapon the state has ever had, because for the first time the hunter could see in the hog's own hours. Think about what that actually does to the balance. A hog spends its whole life exploiting the one advantage the dark gives it. It feeds at night, it moves at night, it beds down in thick cover by day where no one can reach it. For as long as there have been hogs in Louisiana, the night belonged to them. The thermal drone takes that away. Now a single operator, warm in a truck at the edge of a field, can watch an entire sounder glow white against the cold ground from 100 feet up, count them, track which way they drift, and never once be smelled or heard. The animal that owned the darkness suddenly has nowhere in the darkness to hide. And when a crew can do that across 100,000 acres, night after night, the hogs in those specific places start to disappear in a way that looks, from the truck, almost like magic. But the camera that made that possible also opened a door nobody meant to open. But here's what happened, and it is the thing the operators talk about more quietly. When you put an unblinking heat camera over Louisiana at 3 in the morning, you don't just see hogs, you see everything. And what the footage shows over and over is that the emptied swamp was never actually empty. It was just dark. Start with a shape that circles. Coyotes. They are not supposed to matter here, not against something as formidable as a hog. But the thermal footage catches them constantly. Single animals in pairs, ghosting along the edge of a sounder, patient, waiting. A coyote will not take on a boar. It doesn't have to. It waits for the piglets. In an animal that lives or dies by how many young survive their first weeks, a predator that specializes in eating those young is not a nuisance. It is a break, and the coyote, another animal people assume is simply absent from the deep marsh, turns out to be threaded through all of it, working the margins of the pig invasion every single night, taking the future of the sounder one small white shape at a time. The bobcat does the same, from cover, patient and low, pulling off the smallest and weakest of the young where the brush is thick. Neither of these animals will ever bring down a boar. Neither of them is the monster the drone footage promises. But a hog population does not live or die on its adults. It lives or dies on how many piglets survive their first few weeks. And a predator that eats piglets quietly every night across the whole state is pressing on the exact place where that population is most fragile. Then there is the water's edge, and this is where the whole story turns back on itself. Remember the alligator, the ancient predator losing its eggs to the hogs. The alligator does not forget. Diet studies of Louisiana alligators, researchers going through the stomach contents of hundreds of animals, keep turning up the same surprising item alongside the crabs and the nutria and the fish. Feral hog. A recent Food Web study of American alligators lists wild hogs plainly among what these reptiles eat. Picture what that actually means at night on the thermal screen. A sounder comes down to drink at the edge of the black water. The camera reads their heat, bright and busy. And then a long, cold shape that gives off almost no heat at all, nearly invisible on a thermal camera, slides up from the water and takes one. The hog that raids the alligator's nest in spring becomes the thing the alligator drags under in summer. The predator and the prey are the same two animals, trading places with the seasons, at the same muddy line between land and water. Nothing about the food chain here runs in one direction. It runs in a circle, and the circle closes at the water's edge in the dark. And the alligator is not some diminished relic hanging on by luck. Recent research treats it as exactly what it looks like. A true apex predator. One whose presence shapes the whole wetland around it, right down to the carbon held in the marsh soil. The oldest hunter in Louisiana is still doing its job. It is just doing it where no one thought to point a camera until now. At night, at the edge of the black water. On an animal science says it should have no reason to notice. And then, rarest of all, there is the shape that shouldn't be there. Because the clean old story, the one that said nothing large is left, has a crack in it that the state itself has documented. The panther is not entirely gone. It comes back, not as a population. As a rumor made flesh, a few times a decade, caught on camera and confirmed by people whose job is to not believe it. In 2002, a state biologist reported a cougar at Lake Fosse Point, and it was confirmed, hard confirmed, with DNA pulled from scat found at the site. Not a story, not a shadow, a genetic fingerprint of a wild mountain lion in Louisiana. In 2008, trail cameras caught cougars in Wynn, Vernon, and Allen parishes. That November, one was shot and killed in a neighborhood in Bossier City, and DNA work tied one of those 2008 animals back to a population in New Mexico, meaning it had walked, on its own, across a staggering distance to be there. Another was verified in Vernon Parish in 2011. In 2016, one was confirmed in the northeast of the state, and the department noted it was the first they had verified since that 2011 cat. Each one, a ghost, each one gone before anyone could find it again. But real, documented, on the record. And this is where the way people see or refuse to see becomes part of the story itself. Because Louisiana is full of panther sightings, the department fields them constantly. The trouble is that most of them are wrong. When they investigate, the majority turn out to be dog tracks, or bobcats, or even large house cats, glimpsed from a distance in bad light and swollen by the mind into something bigger. And then there is the black panther, the animal at the center of 100 years of Bayou folklore, the huge dark cat everyone's uncle swears he saw. It is worth saying plainly, there has never been a single documented black cougar anywhere in North America. Not one, ever. The state has chased that story for decades, and it has never once been real, so you get a strange double blindness. People see panthers that are not there, constantly, which teaches the experts to distrust every report, and that reflexive distrust is exactly what lets the real ones, the rare confirmed cats, slip through as isolated freak events instead of a pattern. The myth and the fact cancel each other out, and the true animal disappears into the noise its own legend created. The Department of Wildlife and Fisheries is careful and consistent about what this means, and their caution is the honest heart of the mystery. They say there is no established breeding population of cougars in Louisiana. If there were, they would find the evidence that resident cats leave behind. The tracks, the cached kills, the road-killed animals, the scat, over and over. They don't. So what are these confirmed cougars? Their answer is dispersal. Young males, pushed out of the growing cougar population in Texas, striking out alone to find territory of their own, walking hundreds of miles through country that is supposed to be closed to them. And if you doubt how far a young male will go, the record erases the doubt. In 2011, a car struck and killed a mountain lion in Milford, Connecticut of all places. The first confirmed cougar in that state in more than 100 years. DNA proved where he had come from. The Black Hills of South Dakota. That cat had traveled a straight line distance of more than 1,500 miles across the entire middle of a continent, dodging highways and cities and rivers, and biologists called it the longest dispersal ever documented for the species. Nearly double the previous record. He weighed about 140 pounds. A young male cougar of that age usually doesn't wander past 100 miles. This one crossed a country. He was looking for a mate he would never find, and he almost made it to the Atlantic. So hold those two facts against each other. A cougar can walk 1,500 miles alone, and Texas, right next door, has a large and expanding cougar population, separated from the Louisiana bayous by nothing but a river and some pine. The distance the Louisiana ghosts would have to travel is a fraction of what one confirmed cat already proved is possible. Which is why the thermal drone changes the question. For 100 years, the panther in Louisiana was a thing you saw for half a second and could never prove. Now there are heat cameras in the sky over the exact river bottoms where dispersing cats would move, running all night, every night, across more of the state each year. And every operator has a story about the signature that was too big and too solitary and too smooth in its movement to be a hog or a coyote or a deer. Most of it is never verified. A thermal blob is not DNA, but the tool that finally lets us watch the dark is now pointed at the one place the ghost cat travels through. It is only a matter of time before one of those signatures turns out to be exactly what the old story swore could not be there. So the clean explanation is broken. Something is out there, In fact, several somethings are. But that only makes the real question harder because now we have to ask what all of this actually adds up to. And there are a few answers, and none of them let you rest easy. The first possibility is the least romantic and probably the most true. There is no single killer. There is no returning apex predator quietly restoring the balance. There is only pressure from many directions at once, and in certain places it happens to line up. Coyotes taking piglets on the field edges, bobcats taking the smallest young in the brush, alligators taking hogs at the water. And above all of it, the men with the drones and the traps removing dozens of animals from a single sounder in a single night. In one field, in one season, all of that lands on the same population at the same time, and the 40 white shapes become 11. And it looks, on the screen, like something is winning. But zoom out to the whole state and the graph is still climbing. The hogs are not vanishing from Louisiana. They are being thinned, hard, in scattered patches by everything the land and its people can throw at them, while the total number goes up anyway. Which is the most unsettling version of all, because it means this is the best we can do, and it is not nearly enough. The second possibility is stranger and quieter. The cougars are already moving through more often than the confirmations show. A dispersing cat leaves almost no trace. It doesn't stay to build a den or cache kills where a biologist will find them. It passes through, feeds, and moves on, hundreds of miles, and only the unlucky ones, the one hit by a car, the one caught on a good camera, ever enter the record. For every ghost cat that gets confirmed, there may be others that cross the state and were never seen at all. And a hungry young cougar walking through hog country would absolutely take a hog. But here's the cold edge of it. A disperser is not a population. One cat, or two, or five passing through in a decade cannot make a dent in 900,000 hogs. The ghost is real. The ghost is also powerless. It can kill the individual animal in front of it and change nothing about the flood. The most haunting predator in this story is the one that matters least. The third possibility is the one the footage points at most directly, and it is the hardest to romanticize, because it puts us in the frame. The only thing on that thermal screen actually capable of clearing a sounder, of turning 40 into 11 into 0, is the human being holding the controller. The apex predator that returned to Louisiana is not a cat. It is a man with a heat camera and a rifle, flying a machine over fields at night. We emptied this swamp of its wolves and its panthers, and then we became the thing that eats the animal we accidentally let loose. And even now, at the top of the chain, with technology no cougar could dream of, we are killing a third when we would need 3/4. The predator in the drone footage, the one really doing the work, is us, and we are still losing. This is what the authorities will tell you if you ask them plainly, and what they will admit they don't know. The Department of Wildlife and Fisheries will confirm the hogs are not in decline statewide. They will confirm there is no breeding population of cougars and that the confirmed cats are almost certainly dispersers. And then the honest part. They do not know how many cougars pass through unseen. They cannot fully account for how much of the hog population natural predators quietly remove, because it happens where no one counts it. And they will tell you that the vast majority of the dramatic footage circulating online, the big signature, the shape at the water, the thing that shouldn't be there, is unverified. A heat blob is not proof. The night still keeps most of its secrets, even now, even with the cameras up. We have a window into the dark. It is small, and it is grainy, and most of what moves through it we still cannot name, so we are left where we started, over a black field in central Louisiana, watching heat move through the dark. Here's what this is really about in the end, not the fear, not the pigs as monsters, though they can be dangerous, and not the cat as a horror in the trees. It is about how completely a place can hide its own wildness from the people living on top of it. We drive these highways and we farm these fields and we tell ourselves the land is settled, tamed, accounted for, and every night, in the 2 feet of air above the soil we think we own, an entire war is fought that we were never meant to see. The coyote on the tree line, waiting for the young. The alligator sliding back under the black water with the animal that raided its nest. And somewhere between the Texas Hill Country and the Atchafalaya, a young cougar walking north through the dark on legs that have already carried it farther than the maps say it should be able to go, following a scent, looking for a home that this state insists is not there. The hogs were never going to be beaten by us alone. They may never be beaten at all, but they are not unopposed, and they never were. The old predators are not as gone as the story claimed. They were only out of the picture we carry in our heads, the daylight picture, the tame one. Turn on the heat camera, and the picture changes, and the swamp fills back up with everything we thought we had removed from it. It is out there right now. The white shape and the cold shape and the ghost, moving through country that looks, from the road, like nothing is happening at all. They do not need us to see them. They were here first, and they are patient. They are, all of them, out there in the dark, at the edge of the water, waiting. If a story like this stayed with you, the wild hiding in plain sight in the places we assume are safe, YouTube also thinks you're going to like the one already waiting on your screen. Go ahead and let it play. And